Hello, hi, Mrs. Piper. I'm here to read chapters 13 through 15 of Because of Winn, Dixie. Chapter 13. Me and Winn Dixie got into a daily routine where we would leave the trailer early in the morning and get down to Gertrude's Pets just in time to hear Otis play his guitar music for the animals. Sometimes Sweetie Pie snuck in for the concert, too. She sat on the floor and wrapped her arms around Winn Dixie and rocked him back and forth like he was a big old teddy bear. And then, when the music was over, she would walk around trying to pick out which pet she wanted. But she always gave up and went home, because the only thing she really wanted was a dog like Winn Dixie. After she was gone, I would sweep and clean up and even arrange some of Otis's shelves, because he did not have an eye for arranging things, and I did. And when I was done, Otis would write down my time in a notebook that he had marked on the outside. 1 red leather collar, 1 red leather leash. And the whole time he did not in any way ever act like a criminal. After working at Gertrude's Pets, me and Winn Dixie would go over to the Herman W. Block Memorial Library and talk to Miss Franny Block and listen to her tell us a story. But my favorite place to be that summer was in Gloria Dump's yard. And I figured it was Winn Dixie's favorite place to be too, because when we got to the last block before her house, Winn Dixie would break away from my bike and start to run, all for all he was worth, heading toward Gloria Dump's backyard and his spoon full of peanut butter. Sometimes Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry would follow me. They would holler, "There goes the preacher's daughter visiting the witch." "She's not a witch," I told them. It made me mad the way they wouldn't listen to me and kept on believing whatever they wanted to believe about Gloria Dump. One time, Stevie said to me, "My mama says you shouldn't be spending all your time cooped up in that pet shop and at the library sitting around talking with old ladies. She said you should get out in the fresh air and play with kids your own age. That's what my mama says." "Oh, lay off her," Dunlap said to Stevie, and he turned to me. "He don't mean it," he said. But I was already mad. I shouted at Stevie. I said, "I don't care what your mama says. She's not my mama, so she can't tell me what to do." "I'm going to tell my mama you said that," shouted Stevie. "And she'll tell your daddy, and he'll shame you in front of the whole church. And that pet shop man, he's retarded, and he was in jail, and I wonder if your daddy knows that." "Otis is not retarded," I said, "and my daddy knows that he was in jail." Well, that was a lie, but I didn't care. "And you can go ahead and tell on me if you want, you big bald-headed baby." I swear it about wore me out yelling at Dunlap and Stevie Dewberry every day. By the time I got to Gloria Dump's yard, I felt like a soldier who had been fighting in a hard battle. Gloria would make me a peanut butter sandwich straight off, and then she'd pour me a cup of coffee with half coffee and half milk, and that would refresh me. "Why don't you play with them boys?" Gloria asked me. "'Cause they're ignorant," I told her. "They still think you're a witch. It doesn't matter how many times that I tell them you're not." "I think they're just trying to make friends with you in a roundabout way," Gloria said. "Well, I don't want to be their friend," I said. "It might be fun having them 2 boys for friends." "I'd rather talk with you," I said. "They're stupid and mean, and they're boys." Gloria would shake her head and sigh. Then she'd ask me what was going on in the world and did I have any stories to tell her. And I always did. Chapter 14. Sometimes I told Gloria the story that Miss Franny Block had just told me. Or I imitated Otis tapping his pointy-toed boots and playing for all the animals. That always made her laugh. Sometimes I made up a story and Gloria Dump would listen to it all the way through from beginning to end. She told me she used to love to read stories, but she couldn't anymore because her eyes were so bad. "Can't you just get some really strong glasses?" I asked her. "Child," she says, "they don't make glasses strong enough for these eyes." One day when the storytelling was done, I decided to tell Gloria that Otis was a criminal. I thought maybe I should tell an adult about it, and Gloria was the best adult I knew. "Gloria," I said. "Mm-hmm," she said back. "You know Otis?" "Well, I don't know him, but I know what you tell me about him." "Well, he's a criminal. He has been in jail. Do you think I should be afraid of him?" "What for?" "Well, I don't know. For doing bad things, I guess. For being in jail." "Child," said Gloria, "let me show you something." She got up out of her chair real slow and took a hold of my arm. "Let's the 2 of us walk all the way back into this backyard." "Okay," I said. We walked, and Winn Dixie followed right behind us. It was a huge yard, and I'd never been all the way back in it. When we got to a big old tree, we stopped. "Look up at this tree," Gloria said. I looked up. There were bottles hanging from just about every branch. There were whiskey bottles and beer bottles and wine bottles, all tied on with string. Some of them were clanking against each other and making a spooky kind of noise. Me and Winn Dixie stood and stared up at that tree, and the hair on top of his head rose up a little bit, and he growled deep in his throat. Gloria Dump pointed her cane at the tree. "What do you think about this tree?" I said, "I don't know. Why are all those bottles on it?" "To keep the ghosts away," Gloria said. "What ghosts?" "The ghosts of all the things I done wrong." I looked at all the bottles up on that tree. "You did that many things wrong?" I asked her. "Mm-hmm," said Gloria. "More than that." "But you're the nicest person I know," I told her. "Don't mean I haven't done bad things," she said. "There's whiskey bottles on here," I told her, "and beer bottles." "Child," said Gloria Dump, "I know that. I'm the one who put 'em there. I'm the one who drank what was in 'em." "My mama drank," I whispered. "I know it," Gloria Dump said. "The preacher says that sometimes she couldn't stop drinking." "Mm-hmm," said Gloria again. "That's the way it is for some folks. We get started and we can't get stopped." "Are you one of those people?" "Yes, ma'am, I am. But these days I don't drink nothing stronger than coffee." "Did the whiskey and the beer and the wine, did they make you do the bad things that are the ghosts now?" "Some of 'em," said Gloria Dump. "Some of 'em I would have done anyway, with alcohol or without it, before I learned." "Learned what?" "Learned what is the most important thing." "What's that?" I asked her. "Well, it's different for everyone," she said. "You'll find it out on your own. But in the meantime, you got to remember, can't always judge people by the things that things that they done, excuse me. You got to judge them on what they're doing now. You judge Otis on the pretty music he plays and how kind he is to them animals, 'cause that's all you know about him right now, all right?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. "And them Dewberry boys, you try not to judge them too harsh either, all right?" "All right," I said. "All right then," said Gloria Dump, and she turned and started walking away. When Dixie nudged me with his wet nose and wagged his tail. When he saw I wasn't going, he trotted after Gloria. I stayed where I was and I studied that tree. I wondered if my mama, wherever she was, had a tree full of bottles. And I wondered if I was a ghost to her, the same way she sometimes seemed like a ghost to me. Chapter 15. The Herman W. Block Memorial Library air conditioning unit didn't work very good. There was only one fan. And from the minute me and Winn Dixie got into the library, he hogged it all. He lay right down in front of it and wagged his tail and let it blow his fur all around. Some of his fur was pretty loose and blew right off of him like a dandelion puff. I worried about him hogging the fan, and I worried about the fan blowing him bald. But Miss Franny said not to worry about either thing, that Winn Dixie could hog the fan if he wanted, and she had never in her life seen a dog made bald by a fan. Sometimes when Miss Franny was telling a story, she'd have a fit. They were small fits, and they didn't last long. But what happened was she would forget what she was saying. She'd just stop and start to shake like a little leaf. And when that happened, Winn Dixie would get up from the fan and sit right at Miss Fanny Block's side. He'd sit up all tall, protecting her, with his ears standing up straight on his head like soldiers. And when Miss Franny stopped shaking and started talking again, Winn Dixie would lick her hand and lie back down in front of the fan. Whenever Miss Franny had one of her fits, it reminded me of Winn Dixie in a thunderstorm. There were a lot of thunderstorms that summer, and I got real good on holding on to Winn Dixie whenever they came. I held on to him and comforted him and whispered to him and rocked him, just the same way he tried to comfort Miss Franny when she had one of her fits. Only I held on to Winn Dixie for another reason. I held on to him real tight so he wouldn't run away. It all made me think about Gloria Dump. I wondered who comforted her when she heard those bottles knocking together, those ghosts chattering about the things that she had done wrong. I wanted to comfort Gloria Dump, and I decided that the best way to do that would be to read her a book. Read it to her loud enough to keep the ghosts away. So I asked Miss Franny, I said, "Miss Franny, I've got a grown-up friend whose eyes are going on her, and I'd like to read her a book out loud. Do you have any suggestions?" "Suggestions?" said Miss Franny. "Yes, ma'am, I have suggestions. Of course I have suggestions. How about Gone with the Wind?" "Well, what's that about?" I asked her. "Why," said Miss Franny, "it's a wonderful story about the Civil War." "The Civil War?" I said. "Do not tell me you have never heard of the Civil War." Miss Franny Block looked like she was going to faint. She waved her hands in front of her face. I know about the Civil War, I told her. That was the war between the South and the North over slavery. Slavery, yes, said Miss Franny, but it was also about states' rights and money. It was a terrible war. My great-grandfather fought in that war. He was just a boy. Your great-grandfather? Yes, ma'am. Litmus W. Block. Now there's a story. Winn-Dixie yawned real big and lay down on his side with a thump and a sigh. I swear he knew that phrase, now there's a story, and he knew it meant we weren't going anywhere real soon. Go on ahead and tell it to me, Miss Franny, I said, and I sat down cross-legged next to Winn-Dixie. I pushed him and tried to get him to share the fan, but he pretended he was asleep, and he wouldn't move. I was all settled in and ready for a good story when the door banged and pinched-faced Amanda Wilkinson came in. Winn-Dixie sat up and stared at her. He tried out a smile on her, but she didn't smile back, so he lay down again. I'm ready for another book, Amanda said, slamming her book down on Miss Franny's desk. Well, said Miss Franny, maybe you wouldn't mind waiting. I'm telling India Opal a story about my great-grandfather. You are, of course, more than welcome to listen. It'll just be 1 minute. Amanda sighed a real big dramatic sigh and stared past me. She pretended like she was interested. She pretended she wasn't interested, but she was, I could tell. Come sit over here, said Miss Franny. I'll stand, thank you, said Amanda. Suit yourself, Miss Franny shrugged. Now where was I? Oh, yes, Litmus. Litmus W. Block. That does it for me. We'll see you next week when we start with the rest of the book, chapter 16. Have a good weekend.